Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to PC101. My name is Chris, and today joining me we have,
Keelan.
and we're going to be talking to you guys a little bit more about the Detroit Lions 2021 offseason, and some of the things that we might be able to expect and project a little bit on moving forward. So, we know officially that Aaron Glenn is going to be the defensive coordinator, and Dan Campbell has an offensive background. He helped work with the New Orleans Saints run offense, as well as, of course, played tight end. Worked as a tight ends coach, among other things. He works at game planning and all the elements and things like that are associated with offense. So he'll likely have a pretty major, if not the biggest voice in Lions offense moving forward next year. So, Keelan, I didn't want to spoil anything for you ahead of time, but I wanted to get some of your thoughts on what you expect from this team moving towards a 42 front next year, assuming that is what happens as has been projected, as well as your thoughts on some of the schematic versatility that we have on the offensive side of the ball. So, the first thing that I want to ask you about specifically, and this isn't just going to be a question and answer thing. Obviously, we'll have a little bit of a discussion and back and forth on this. But your thoughts on Deandre Swift, because it sounds like Dan Campbell has some pretty big plans for Deandre Swift moving forward. Whether it be from a fantasy side, whether it be from a schematic side, however you want to adjust the topic of Deandre Swift and what we saw from him his rookie year, what you think you're going to see from him next year, what you remember of him from his college tape and how that translated. Any particular way that you want to adjust Deandre Swift?
Sure, yeah. I think you and I just had a little bit of a brief discussion, and I'm kind of working on an article currently about him. But, I love Swift, and I think he's an extremely versatile player. He was one of the best receiving backs last year, coming out of college, of course, from Georgia. But I think he can be utilized in numerous ways. And, a big thing that sticks out to me is like a comparison with someone that Campbell has spent the last few years with, his Saints running back Alvin Kamara. I think they're similar in the way that they play. They both have that receiving versatility. They are both dual threat backs. And if we can utilize Swift like the Saints utilized Kamara, I think that Swift has truly the upside to be a back similar of that caliber.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that I'm kind of most excited about for the Dan Campbell era coming up and moving forward is really just the potential to unlock our two biggest dynamic playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. And Dan Campbell said that, yeah, there's a lot more guys on offense that I like right now that get me excited in the defense. And Swift appears to be one of those guys. And the other one that really stands out in terms of playmaking ability is the guy who played the same position that he played when he was a player, the tight end spot, in TJ Hockenson. So I just wanted to get your thoughts a little bit too while you're here on what you think about the potential to utilize and unlock and untap the potential that we saw come to fruition a little bit this year, start to rise up a little bit in our tight end in TJ Hockenson, and what you think that he's going to be able to develop and turn into when Campbell comes to lead this Detroit Lions team.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like we discussed, tight end is Coach Campbell's specialty. He was a tight end in the NFL for a number of years. And obviously, along with being the assistant head coach for the Saints, he was the tight ends coach there. So he spent some time, developing players there. And Hawkinson's by far better than any tight end on the Saints roster while Campbell's been there.
Or any of the
So,
other teams he's coached, even going back to his days
true.
with Miami and Dallas and so on.
Yep. I'm not sure if he was there with Witten or not, so I can't say, but Hawkinson's an extremely great talent. Obviously, he was a top 10 pick for us a couple of years ago. He has the athleticism to play the position that we're seeing. The tight end position has really changed over the last few years. And I believe Hawkinson has the athleticism to match that. But not only that, but he has the strength and the ability to really play in, last generation tight end room, where you have to be able to block, and you have to be that mean, tough guy. And I think that's something that Campbell is going to really appreciate, being from that era of tight end. So it's really going to be interesting to see how he's utilized. Obviously, he's one of the best tight ends in the National Football League, and he's obviously not perfect. He's not on the tier of a Kelsey or a Kittle, or hell, even a Darren Waller, but he has the potential to be a George Kittle, and he just with the proper coaching, I think he has tremendous upside in this offense.
Sweet. So that leads us into today's topic for our podcast, having broken down both Deandre Swift and TJ Hockenson. And this is a topic that I talk a lot about all the time. Every time we do pro film, whenever we watch running backs or tight ends, it seems like just casually, not necessarily on the channel, but like when I do our film sessions with Keeling and Brayden and Sam and everyone else has been on the channel, as well as even articles I brought it up in for people who follow me here from Detroit Lions podcast, or I've talked a lot about it even like on their podcast when I call in and do that and participate in that process. And that is the ability to utilize running back tight end concepts as part of the pivotal new evolution of the modern NFL offense. So, Keelan, you asked about what the topic is going to be. There you go. The evolution and development of running back tight end passing game concepts, as well as, not necessarily just in the passing game, but the importance of the running back tight end relationship in the run game. So, I'll let you speak a little bit to this first, and you can hit whatever side, running or pass game first. We're going to tackle them separately, so just pick one to start. But your take on what this means with the hiring of Dan Campbell and bringing in this offensive mind. Obviously, we don't know the OC yet, but just the potential here that we have to move in this direction with Dan Campbell, and what this means for the team, either in our rushing attack with TJ Hockenson blocking for Swift on the end, or what it means for the passing game, and what it means for how we can play Deandre Swift and TJ Hockenson off each other. Just start with either pass or run, and then we'll move from there.
Sure, yeah, we'll start with the pass game first. Well, to me, a big key to the offense as we are in the modern era of football is really opening up the running backs and the tight ends in the passing game. It's a key part of football right now. Obviously, Travis Kelce was a key part of the Chiefs Super Bowl last year, key part of the run this year. George Kittle was key to the run by the 49ers last year. And really, what that does is having a threat at running back and having to have a good cover linebacker and a good cover safety on a running back really opens up the tight end, or vice versa, because you don't have that luxury where you can double team a tight end with if you have a really good running back. And it's tough because there's not a whole lot of like elite running back tight end duos. I mean, there's the group is thin when you talk to or when you look at elite receiving tight ends. So it's hard to look at precedent, but both of those positions, a receiving back and a tight end, are key to the QB's success more so than any other position, in my opinion. So now that we've spoken about this, going back to the Lions' point with Hockenson and Swift, regardless who the QB is next season, if we're going to roll with Stafford for a couple more years, if we're going to draft a guy like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or sign a free agent or trade for someone or whatever happens at the position, it's going to be extremely crucial to open up the pass game. And we saw flashes of it from Swift through the season. Obviously, a lot of fans are going to look back at that one end zone drop in week 1 against the Bears. But he showed a lot of flashes. And if we can open up that consistent hands for both Swift and Hockenson, it would do wonders for whatever offensive system we run with whatever quarterback.
So, one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I feel like this is a really underrated point. And one of the things I'm hoping to do throughout the course of this podcast and however long this ends up lasting, however episodes we end up doing, is really kind of hit on, I guess, addressing things that are kind of being under-addressed or underrated or underappreciated across the league right now. So I'm looking at wide receiver target numbers. And okay, your top 5, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. All great guys, all over 145 targets. Fantastic, right? So you look at tight ends. There are 2 tight ends who would be top 5 in targets in the league today, including wide receivers. Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. Darren Waller is not like normally considered, like, obviously, as you mentioned, he's great. He's like a top 5 tight end for sure. But he's not normally listed in that same tier as Travis Kelce or George Kittle. He had 146 targets last year. Now, part of that, of course, is the offense being the weapons that they have around him. But at the same time, it really speaks to just how important the tight end position can be in that offense. Okay? So after you go through that, who are the rest of your target leaders? Deontay Johnson, number 2 receiver, technically. Calvin Ridley, number 2 receiver, technically, by default. I mean, obviously he's a number 1 caliber receiver, but number 2 in Atlanta. Robbie Anderson is kind of in that group of wide receivers in Carolina. I don't necessarily want to say they have a number 1 with DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel also there. Tyreek Hill, okay, number 1. Terry McLaurin, no real other weapons there. Tyler Lockett, okay, yeah, I can consider him a number 1 at this point. Amari Cooper, Robert Woods. Is he Robert Woods even a number 1 with Cooper Kupp and
Probably
all
not.
those guys they have there? DK,
Probably a 1B.
DK Metcalf. So, okay, you have 2 guys from the same team already in the top 15. Juju Smith, okay, he's the number 1 I consider there. Justin Jefferson, he's probably number 2. Cooper Kupp, another Rams guy, etc., etc. Another Carolina guy. Marvin Jones is supposed to be number 2. I can keep going. There's 34 guys right now that have over 100 receptions. Receivers. Okay. So, excluding the 2 tight ends I mentioned earlier, Waller and Kelce, you have Logan Thomas at 110, Evan Ingram at 109, and the big one here, number 5, TJ Hockenson, who had 101 targets last year. So, I really think that this is here to stay. And I know that Darrell Bevel is gone, and he's not on his way to Jacksonville. So, good luck to him and his future endeavors working with what looks to be Trevor Lawrence in the coming weeks, or in the coming year, I guess. But I really do think that it's very interesting to see. Okay, TJ Hockenson was number 2 on lines last year in targets. Now, Kenny Galladay was hurt, but Kenny Galladay is also probably taking some of the chunk out of Marvin's targets more so than Hawkinson's, right? So it really does kind of, I think, speak to, and that's not including all the guys that have 90 targets, and Henry Ebron, Andrews is right there, Dalton Schultz is right there. He and Hurst and Jaceki have 85 plus, and that doesn't even include Gronkowski, who's a well-respected vet. Rob Gronkowski was a well-respected vet. Jimmy Graham was a well-respected vet. Zach Ertz was a well-respected threat. Austin Hooper, who of course has emerged there. Johnny Smith, who's a big part of that offense. George Kittle, who was hurt, had 63 in 8 games, so he would have been on pace for over 120. And just all these guys, they're really starting to emerge as the widers, or as the tight end position continues to grow and grow and grow in importance. So I really do think that this is really setting the Lions up to be in a position to really be at the forefront of a cutting edge modern day NFL offense. So, Keelan, back to you for this. What do you think that, based on what you've heard from Brad Holmes and his approach to team building and being forward thinking, how much do you think that TJ Hockenson is going to be possibly the biggest building block on this team moving forward?
Well, I'm not sure if it even it really comes down to Brad Holmes, because
Or Campbell.
From what I've heard, they're gonna be, from both, listening to both of their press conferences. From what I've heard, they're both gonna have an equal say, on cuts, on roster management. But I think that, from what I heard, even Dan Campbell, who seems like he's just a hard-nosed, run-the-football guy, just from his demeanor and from what he seems like, he even thinks the league is adapting and is going into a pass-first league. So, obviously, he's going to look at what's worked, and he's going to look at what's the future, and the future is the tight ends. So, yeah, I do believe that he's going to be the most important building block, as Matthew Stafford is, getting up there in age. He's well into his 30s by now. We don't know if he wants to be in Detroit for another regime change and another quote-unquote rebuild, right? Because we don't know what that situation is. But Hockenson is clearly the most important part of this team, the most valuable player currently, and I think at this current point, he's the most difficult to replace, because there's just not many tight ends that are as valuable as TJ Hockenson. So to answer your question, yeah, I believe that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and whoever the offensive coordinator is are going to really value TJ Hockenson as a part of this offense. And he's definitely going to be a key building block as we, get into free agency in in a month or two. And obviously the draft and stuff.
Yep. So, yeah, and I think that this is another thing that kind of comes along with that, okay? So, you have a couple of guys who have worked with longtime quarterbacks. Darren Waller is working with Derek Carr, who's been there for a long time now. Eric Ebron, of course, is working with Roethlisberger, who's been in Pittsburgh for as long as I've been watching football, which is a long time now.
For 16 years, the year I was born.
Yeah. And then you have Matt Ryan in Atlanta throwing to Hayden Hurst. But if you take a look around and of course Gronkowski and Brady, that kind of goes without saying at this point. But if we take a look around at some of these other positions, okay, Travis Kelce was a big reason for, well, I wouldn't necessarily say a big reason, but definitely a significant part of the puzzle in Kansas City. Logan Thomas has been a part of that piece in Washington and their offensive resurgence this year. I mean, Ingram has been working with Daniel Jones, a young quarterback. TJ Hockenson, okay. Noah Fant working with Drew Lock. Hunter Henry working with Justin Herbert. Mark Andrews working with Lamar Jackson. Dalton Schultz working with Dak, who's still kind of on the younger side. And Andy Dalton, who's his first year in that system. Atlanta, or I skipped over Atlanta. Mike Gesicki working with Tua Tagovailoa. So I feel like another thing that we're kind of going without saying here, and this goes broader than the Lions, which is why I'm kind of moving this over and changing this briefly a little bit, is the importance of having a capable and reliable tight end on young quarterbacks. So what is your perspective? Because for me personally, I think the tight end position has the versatility to be able to be used as a safety net for your underneath routes, your hot reads and things like that, as well as your seam stretchers up the middle. So what do you think about the tight end position as a security blanket for a young quarterback moving forward, and its importance for teams who are going to be looking for young quarterbacks, like whether it be the Saints or maybe eventually the Bucks or whoever it is that ends up going for the Jets, the Jaguars, with Trevor Lawrence coming in. Especially knowing that Bevel was the guy who took TJ Hockenson. And the way that these teams could go about building around the young quarterbacks by giving them a tight end threat.
Right, yeah, I think that based on history, that kind of almost goes without saying on how invaluable tight end is for a young quarterback. I mean, we've seen it over and over again, like you described. So, really, it's really been on the up and ups and incredibly valuable as we're in a more modern era of football.
Yep, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, and I'm kind of going a little bit around in circles, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Pitts, the tight end from Florida, because whatever team ends up getting him is going to be able to give their offense a dynamic threat. So we've been talking a lot in some of I guess I should say, group chats about the TJ Hockenson pick in general, and how the Lions may or may not have made a mistake taking a tight end in the top 10. And for me personally, again, this is going to my opinion side of this, I don't agree. I personally believe that TJ Hockenson is going to be a foundational piece for this team moving forward. He adds almost, if not just as much value as a wide receiver does, or a running back does, or an offensive lineman does, or a defensive player does, because the offensive side of the ball is, generally speaking, more valuable than the defensive side, and your pass catchers are generally more valuable than your run game predominant players, aka your running back and your runner running back and your run blocking offensive linemen, specifically interior guys. So I feel like one thing that we really need to kind of get at here is whoever takes Kyle Pitts is going to be getting a very good football player who, obviously, we still have to do our breakdown on him. That's going to be another one that we get to very, very shortly. Hopefully even before this video drops. And what he can bring to the table offensively to whatever team ends up taking him. Because if you're a team that's building around a young quarterback, a first-year quarterback, like maybe the Jets. I don't know where their other pick is. Unfortunately, I don't have my draft orders
It's in
pulled up.
the 20s. It's just,
Oh, is it? Uh,
yeah, like 23 probably around there.
oh, okay. Well, maybe not the best example then. Well, I guess they could trade up or whatever it is. Or the
A
Jaguars.
team like the Cowboys.
Yep. Okay. Dallas would make sense with Dak Prescott, assuming they keep him. Uh, Carolina, man, Carolina is going to be a fun team to watch this offseason because what they do need. I love Teddy. Just going to throw that out there. L1C4, but man, they need a quarterback upgrade. On the other hand, we're really seeing this is the Panthers are a perfect example of this. Perfect example of this. Because their offense was not as good, like play calling wise schematically, under Ron Rivera. Okay.
Right.
Matt Rule is a better offensive coach than Ron Rivera and his staff were. That's just how it goes. But what happened is Rule walked into a situation this year, okay, he's working with new personnel and stuff like that also. But they chose to build around their receivers, in part because they had to. Christian McCaffrey got hurt, Greg Olsen walked, so they had to build around their wide receivers. And we saw their offense tank this year. Their offense was not as productive as it was in previous seasons. Again, part of that, of course, goes back to McCaffrey being as incredible a talent as he is on the run game side.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider the running back tight
Not
end.
even just a run game.
Yeah, but you have to really consider the running back tight end relationship there that Christian McCaffrey and Greg Olsen had built. So I really think that the Panthers are a great case study for this because when you get Christian McCaffrey back next year, healthy, you keep your wide receivers, hopefully for them. Curtis Samuel has definitely got a role in that offense. Robbie Anderson, as I mentioned, top 10 or so in targets this year, very much a role in that offense. And DJ Moore definitely has the potential to be a very, very good player in that role offense. They could so use someone like Pitts to be that guy that complements Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And I think that would be such a great fit for him because what's going to happen is when you see Christian McCaffrey come back, that offense having that tight end to distract and draw coverage and vice versa. Obviously, teams are still going to be playing Christian, so that might even free up picks a little bit more, especially in year one. You're really going to get to see the changes in the playbook flexibility and the schematic versatility and the game planning and the preparation and the defensive adjustments and all the ins and outs of what you can really see strategically on the field come to light when they add that tight end piece of the puzzle. And no matter who their quarterback ends up being, whether they end up taking a guy at 8 instead or trading up for a guy at the back end of the first, maybe someone like I don't know, Kyle Trask, who also being
Or if
an
Lance
age.
slips,
Yeah, if Lance falls, I guess.
like Jackson did.
Or I don't know, maybe they sign a free agent, or maybe they pull off a trade for Deshaun Watson. That'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Like you have all these different potential options, or maybe you just stick with Teddy Bridgewater. You really open up the things that you can do with your offense around a tight end and a running back combination. And we got to see some of the beginnings of that and what Rule can do this year with the wide receivers, right? We got to see Robbie Anderson really emerge and become a true number one outside of New York and Adam Gase. We're really starting to see the development talent-wise of DJ Moore and his potential and his ceiling and what he can truly become. We're starting to see the potential that Curtis Samuel offers specifically after the catch and what he can do on jets and motions and drawing defenses and being an extra guy to account for with his speed and athleticism and his versatility to move around and take advantage of different matchups. And you're really going to be adding something truly dynamic to the puzzle if you're the team that takes Kyle Pitts. And I want to get your thoughts on this because this is something that I've been thinking about a little bit lately in particular. And someone brought up, I don't remember where it was. It might have been Daniel. and the potential that the Lions take Pitts at number
Scott.
7.
That was a Scott thing, but yeah. You know, it's really, honestly, I've had that thought myself, and it's been a bit of a, I guess I'll call it an inner battle, because obviously having two dynamic threats like a Pitts and Hawkinson would be tremendous. But at the same time, how many times do teams run a two tight end set?
So,
Just, I don't know if you have.
I do, actually. You're going to need to keep talking because I do have to bring it up. But, like, it's
Alright,
when
yeah,
thought
you
while I
don't
do
have
that.
screen share on, so I didn't see. Couldn't
Yeah,
see.
because I just showed the picture. I'll pull it up on my iPad.
Okay, well, my question obviously is, how valuable is a second tight end compared to clearly blatant positional needs that the Lions have, whether that's quarterback if we end up trading Matthew Stafford.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously,
Whether
yeah. If we need a quarterback, you can throw Pitts out the or wide receiver.
Sure,
anything
okay,
else out the window.
we'll
We're
leave
taking a
that.
quarterback.
We'll leave that out. We'll leave out the possibility of a Stafford trade for this particular thing. We're gonna our top three receivers in Galladay, Marvin Jones, and Danny Amendola are all free agents.
Okay, so here's what
How
you
much
do.
more value?
Here's what you do. You bring back one of them, or you sign a free agent for one of them. Okay. You draft another one later on, 3rd round, 4th round pick, in Quintus Cephas. And then you run 30 to 40% tight end twos. So here are the offenses that have run, we'll say 25% or more. I feel like that's a pretty fair, reasonable cutoff. 25% or more, 2 tight end. Okay, this is just 12 personnel. This isn't 13, this isn't 22, this isn't 02, this is just 12 personnel. Okay? Teams that have run 25% or more, 12 personnel specifically. Arizona, Cleveland, Houston.
Makes sense. Cleveland
Green Bay
has two elite tight ends.
Okay. Green Bay is close at 24. Houston, Los Angeles Rams, where Holmes comes from, Miami, the Giants, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Tennessee.
It's fascinating to think because three of those teams really have a pair of fantastic tight ends. Obviously, the Rams have Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. The Browns have Hooper and Njoku, and the Eagles have Goddard and Ertz. So it's very interesting to see,
So let's add on to this a little bit, right? So you brought up the Browns. They run 14% of their snaps this year. That's a lot. And 13 personnel.
Wow. Interesting.
They ran they ran 156 snaps. This is just regular season, by the way. This doesn't include playoffs. 156 snaps in 3 tight end sets. And the Giants also hit 10% at 100 snaps. And Tennessee also hit 100 snaps at 9%. And that doesn't include Vegas, who had 8%. That doesn't include the Colts, who had 8%. That doesn't include all these other teams that are really Tennessee hit 9%. I think I said them. And then you also have the teams who use 22 personnel. Baltimore, 16%. Cleveland, again, 8%. Las Vegas, again, 12%, 128 snaps. San Francisco, 9%, despite not having Kittle majority of the year. Minnesota, 9%. There are a lot of teams. Those are just like the bigger numbers, too. Obviously, there's a lot of like 5% or so for both of those numbers. And then you even have like is that Chicago? I think that's Chicago that ran 12 personnel 5% of the time. So you have a lot of flexibility with what you can do with that second tight end position and the types of
Well,
players that you can utilize in both of those positions. So I really do feel like the potential to add to that is there, especially coming from where Holmes came from with LA, who has a lot of those multi-tight end sets. And the Saints are the only team, or at least one of the only teams in the league, that utilized every single possible personnel grouping in the available on the football field legally this year.
hmm,
They played at least one snap in every single personnel grouping except for 32 and 14.
okay.
So they are very, very versatile in what they do offensively. So I feel like the
Right.
importance of that second tight end position and even a second running back position or even a second fullback position, uh, or whatever, however you break it down, someone who can fill a variety of roles is going to be a very fun piece to watch for this offense. And that comes from both the Rams side with what we saw with Higbee and Everett, and that also comes from what we see with the Saints side with guys like Taysom Hill, Josh Hill, not Jared Cook. Is it Jared Cook that's there now? I
Yep,
think it's Jared Cook,
that's it.
yeah. And then he wasn't there for Jimmy Graham, but he comes from that Saints offense that utilized Jimmy Graham. So, like, there's all different kinds of things that the Lions would be able to do with a second tight end. And I would not be surprised, and I would honestly, this is going to be very controversial, but I would be very happy if we took Pitts at 7 at this point. Your take. Keelan? Crap, I think Keelan cut out. Anyway, oh, nope, there you are.
Sure, I don't know. Must have disconnected or something. I'm still concerned about the fact about taking two tight ends when, or taking an extra tight end, because I think that'd be more of a luxury pick, and a luxury we don't have in the first year of a new regime.
So the whole thing is that it wouldn't be a luxury pick because you would be building your offense around those two guys and Deandre Swift. And really what it would do,
Fair enough.
is it would allow us a way as a team that has no wide receivers other than Quintez to really devalue and de-elevate the importance as well as the need at the wide receiver position because you would always have Pitts or Hawk in the slot, or you would always have them both on the field and in line, which obviously gives you flexibility with the run game, or you would have both of them outside and you wouldn't need any receivers on the field. There's all different types of things that you can do. And the one thing that really stands out to me about this is what Campbell said at his press conference about matchups and how this is going to be a team that really looks to scheme around ourselves and the personnel that we have and getting the best players on the field and taking advantage of matchups that the other teams present to us. And the matchup advantages that we'll be able to create with two tight ends of that caliber and Deandre Swift and a versatility to line up inside, outside, in line, in the backfield in Swift's case, the matchup advantages and the schematic and versatility and positional alignment versatility that we would have with personnel groupings like that would just be mind-boggling. And it really would allow for so many different play calls and potentials and things like that. And it would also be a great way to, as I said at the beginning of this little ramble, minimize the importance and value and need of addressing the wide receiver position and having to overhaul that group all in one season. Because the chances of us finding 3 starting wide receivers this offseason, is not high. Whether it be in the first round, whether it be second round or later in the draft, whether it be signing 2 or more free agents, whether it be Quintez or another guy staying on board, the chances of us really finding 3 starting caliber receivers this year is not good. So finding a way to be creative and maximize the different options that we have, I think that that would be a really creative, innovative, and forward-thinking way to be able to create and scheme matchup advantages that is uniquely Detroit. Keelan?
Right. Yeah. You got a good point there, and yeah, it would be definitely very interesting, and um, well, gotta figure out how to exactly. I do understand that there's an up and coming, that can be versatile, but if that happens, we're definitely gonna need to look at hitting home runs in the second and third and fourth rounds because we have a lot of holes. And I guess maybe I'm just not used to the fact that pretty much every team doesn't have. I don't think any team has two elite tight ends, so it's hard to get used to. But if Dan Campbell and the rest of that coaching staff can make it work, I think that would be a ton of fun.
And I think that they could, is really why I'm bringing this up in the first place, is because they're experiencing exposure to working with different tight ends and being tight ends and understanding the importance of that position and the value that that position brings. And again, this is also partially coming from Holmes' background with the Rams, where they too are very invested in their tight ends and understanding the importance and the analytics and the difference in value that there is between tight ends and wide receivers or running backs, and that they're the only real position. Okay, you can maybe include offensive linemen, but they're the only position that can. Okay, well, actually exclude offensive linemen for this. They're the only position in the league that can both catch a ball and block in the run game. Unless you have some crazy weird tight end or offensive line eligible type of trick play. They're the only position that can consistently catch the ball and run block on the football field. Okay, well maybe fullbacks I guess can be included, but that's a whole other separate discussion that we'll get into another time.
Yep.
They are probably the most underrated piece in terms of positional value and the differences. And the market inefficiency is going to be the key phrase here. There really is a market inefficiency at the tight end position. And the Lions being ahead of that curve, I think would be very exciting. Now, of course, this is all just speculation and my personal thoughts, and there's obviously zero guarantee that the Lions are even considering a tight end. But I do think that that would be something that a lot of fans would be very mad or very upset with, or are even just completely dismissing the possibility of. When I think that would be a real good, fun, solid option.
Yeah. Going into this, I was a bit, undecided, and I would have thought I'd be a bit disappointed. But more as we think of it, if we find a tight end that's worth pick 7, whether that's Pitts, if we set aside Pitts is, a superstar, top 10 caliber player, if we take him to be our other starting tight end, not even our backup, our other starting tight end, I think that would be a ton of fun and allow for a ton of leniency and versatility.
And really what it does is it forces other teams to account for a completely different element that most teams just don't offer. And of course you have your exceptions there, like Cleveland and Philadelphia and Tennessee. But what it does is it really gives you an advantage because not many other teams defensively have the versatility on that side of the ball to be able to counter and match with that. And then of those teams that I just mentioned, Tennessee doesn't really have a great receiving back. Nick Chubb, fantastic running back, but he's not really known as a pass catcher. In Philadelphia, Miles Sanders is fine. He's an above average running back. not really the type of receiving upside and slot alignment and so on and so forth that you really get with Deandre Swift. DeAndre Swift. So it
Yep.
really gives the Lions something that can be uniquely them and really emphasize this new Lions way and being different. And I think that that's something that we've been hitting home a lot about is in the last few weeks. And I wrote an article about this in the last episode of the podcast we did was how we kind of emulate the Ravens, who also, by the way, another team that uses two tight ends a lot or more.
Yep. Andrews and Boyle are both terrific tight
And before
ends.
that, they had Hayden Hurst before they traded him, who was a first-round pick.
Yep.
So they're a team. I mean, Ozzie Newsome, a former tight end, is part of the reason for that, and long story. But
And that's an interesting connection. Before we continue, Ozzie Newsome, obviously the former Ravens general manager for pretty much almost 2 decades, not quite, was a former tight end. And that's the same connection, obviously, that Dan Campbell has. He's a former tight end. Obviously not the same position, or in their post-playing careers. Obviously, Newsome a GM, Campbell a head coach, but they're both former tight ends who clearly can connect and think that they, can recognize talent based on their previous position. So it's an interesting connection there.
And they understand.
If Campbell,
they understand the value that the tight end position can bring to an offense.
Mm-hmm.
And it just all goes back to, and it's like, I mean, man, I'm looking at these mock drafts, and it's like, okay, yeah, if Devontae Smith is there, that'd be great, right? But the biggest concern with him is size. And like Jamar Chase, like, okay, yeah, Jamar Chase would be a great down the field threat and something that we don't have. Okay, if he's there, right? Or obviously, if we need a quarterback, that this entire conversation goes completely out the window and becomes irrelevant in 3 months. But man, there really isn't a defensive piece to me, other than maybe Parsons, you could argue, that really adds the same kind of value that Pitts would even as a second tight end.
Not that this is the point of the video, but I really don't see us going Micah Parsons, based on what I've heard from Brad Holmes' press conference,
and Dan Campbell.
From what I've heard from Dan Campbell's press conference, that he just doesn't seem like he fits this new. No, he's not a character fit. He's not what everybody has been preaching over the past few weeks. Going up to Sheila, going up to Rod Wood, Chris Spielman, yep, and Campbell and Holmes and all that. Yeah, he just doesn't seem like a fit. So that really leaves no elite defensive talent.
And this is going to be a team that goes best player available in the draft going forward. Mm-hmm. That's the Rams' philosophy. That's what the Saints' philosophy largely has been under Mickey Loomis as well, for the most part. That's how they end up with the guys that they do, and that's why there's such a pipeline for talent development, is because they just take whoever the best person is. And that's what the Colts' philosophy is, and why they've had such success in recent years. Another team that I kind of like, Baltimore, another team that kind of thinks that same way, always gets those best players, at least on their particular boards. So if Kyle Pitts ends up becoming this team's best available player at 7, of course, that outside of the potential for quarterback, I really do think that we would strongly consider taking him, and that would be a very fun add to this football team.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, whatever your thoughts were. Go ahead, I was going to ask for your thoughts.
I was going to say, regardless if it's... and Pitts is a completely different football player than TJ Hockenson, which makes it even more fun. They're not carbon copies of each other. Hockenson, to me, is more of a George Kittle player, where Pitts is like
Waller,
that Travis Kelce or a Darren Waller.
I've seen Waller.
Or he really honestly Pitts is a better version of Evan Ingram. And, Pitts has that ability to, he doesn't have to be lined up right next to an offensive tackle. He can be in the slot. He can flex out wide. He really has that versatility to be utilized like those really elite receiving tight ends, like those obviously Ingram, Kelsey, and Waller. So that's just their difference of play style is really intriguing.
So, I just wanted to bring up that possibility, and we kind of worked our way into it. But just what that would do, what a Pick's potential addition might do for someone like Swift. And this goes back to what we started out at the top. Like, okay, this Swift is very clearly someone that we think is going to be a building block. TJ Hockenson is someone that we very clearly think is going to be a building block. These are two guys that get us really excited about offense and what we can do and how we can utilize those mismatches. If you throw Pitts into that group, he's someone that we can get very excited about, that we can utilize and get those mismatches. It all kind of fits in that same type of vision that we're going to be looking for on offense. And I really do think that for someone who may not necessarily be as much into the X's and O's like Campbell and looking for, okay, we need to have this so-and-so at X receiver. We need to have this and this and this and that at Z receiver. And looking for the best available players and get me the best guy. We'll figure out how to use them all later. Just get me the player who's going to bring passion, bring excitement, who can be what we need him to be every day, bring that consistency element, be someone we can rely on, be someone we can trust, be someone we can count on to be the best player they can be 100% of the time every single game. I feel like Pitts might be the closest to that out of maybe anyone in this class.
Yeah.
So the alignment there with the vision of what I personally think and expect this team is going to look like in 3 months, I think really lines up really well with what Kyle Pitts can bring to this football team.
Right. Yeah. So, what? Obviously, you said that Campbell, he's pretty much the complete opposite of Matt Patricia. In the fact that Patricia was that, well, unironically, he was literally a rocket scientist. And the fact that he was extremely schematics based, he was extremely X's and O's based. What Coach Campbell now is really that type of guy. He's that motivator. He's that person that's gonna get the best out of your players, but not by maybe putting them in the spot that I don't know how I'm gonna how to word this, but maybe not per se in the. I'm not sure how to word, but what Campbell does is he gets to players who want to be there. He motivates players, and that's how he gets his success. He doesn't get his success by outsmarting the other coach. He gets that success based on his players want to kick the ass of the other team, and that's how this Lions team is going to win.
And the tight end position is a great way to do that.
Exactly.
It's physical. Yeah. It really emulates that style of football. It honestly, if we're concerned about Devontae Smith's size, oh man, he's going to get banged up a lot. Are you really concerned about Kyle Pitts getting banged up and injured and this and that and hit and oh my gosh, he's a stick and too small? No, you're not concerned about that at all. Now, of course, there's the potential for injury like there is with every single guy, especially when you're talking about blockers. And we saw what happened to TJ Hockenson when he tried to hurdle and stuff his rookie year. But that consistent reliability element is largely there. So if they have, okay, maybe we don't want to take Devontae Smith because of the injury. Maybe we think Jamar Chase is too one-dimensional and is largely vertical based or whatever it may be, or maybe we don't like any of the defenders, or maybe we spent a lot of money on defenders in free agency, which is another possibility. We're keeping Stafford, this and that, and Pitts is the best talent available. I see no reason whatsoever as to why we shouldn't take him.
Right. And uh, just to talk about Swift as well, a really good tight end is going to wear out the linebackers and wear out the safeties. And it's really going to open up that run game.
Yep.
It's going to open up that play
Yep.
action. Yeah, and when we open that run game up, that's going to open up that play action and, really get guys like Pitts and Hockenson open. And that's really what's going to really make our offense succeed.
And the other thing too that I think that goes along with that is the situational football element. Your third down conversions are critical. Your red zone success is critical. Those are two areas. If you win in the red zone and you win on third down, you're winning football games. And tight ends are one of the biggest advantages that teams have and utilize on third downs. And Tennessee with Arthur Smith last year and the year before is the perfect example of this. And we really saw what they were able to do by utilizing that play action game, utilizing that power run game. And by power, I don't necessarily mean power blocking. I mean power as in physical run game to really win those tight, physical, contested battles, those wars that they go into every week in the trenches. And giving a team who can do such a variety of things, whether it be seam stretching in C2s, whether it be making sure that teams account for down the field, maybe they run C3s and lowers and lessens the number of defenders who can crash short, opening up your underneath routes and your hots for Swift. Or whether it be teams that feel they need to send blitzes because maybe you have an extra pass protector with the line in TJ or Pitts, who also, by the way, tight ends can pass protect too, keep your quarterback upright. Something that we need to do.
And not to
In
that. And not just in that narrative about Pitts is just a receiver. Pitts is a damn good blocker too for his play style. He's one of the more well-rounded tight end prospects I've ever seen. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the best tight end prospect ever. That's how good he is, and I'm extremely looking forward to getting to his tape with you and seeing what you think about him as well, Chris.
Yeah, and we got to see it's a little bit of a sneak peek when we did our chess chrome session, which will be dropping during quarterback week, whenever that comes. But like the things that he can do, and just from watching him on the side, it seems like at least a couple times a game it was like, oh well, there's Kyle Pitts again, or oh well, yeah, that must be Kyle Pitts. And he's the guy that you really have to game plan around and be accountable for as a defense. And having two of those guys be tight ends on the same team, plus a running back, most of the time you're scheming, okay, we need to take away Julio Jones. Okay, we need to take away Deandre Hockenson. Okay, we need to take away Tyreek Hill. We need to take away the number one receiver. Being the team, we need to take away these tight ends. That's different. That is something that would be, and I keep going back to this. That would be something that would be uniquely Lions, and really give us an identity and something unique, and something that I think we can really point to. Hey, this is blue collar. This is Motor City. We're built on toughness. We're built on grit. We're built on winning in the trenches. We're built on, as Campbell put it, taking off other teams' kneecaps. Right? We're going to be the team that really does this and wins with physicality, grit, toughness, blue collar. Toughness, physical, all those words that get thrown around all the time when it comes to Lions football. And that really would truly emulate that and say, okay, we're telling you right up front, we're doing this. You come to Detroit, you are going to be playing a freaking physical football team. and we will get after you, not just on defense. We don't want to be the team that just has flyers on defense and we're going to hit you hard. Every team can say that. But we're going to be the team that plays you 60 minutes on both sides of the football. Tough and physical and aggressive.
Mm.
And that would be something that is unique to Detroit Lions football in the Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes era. And it really would set the tone. It would be a tone setter for the potential of what this future could become for the next 5 or 10 years plus.
Yeah, and you see, it's and it's just very interesting as we go forward because it's not something that we usually see. We don't see two elite tight end talents on the same team, so it's really like you've been saying, uniquely Detroit or uniquely Lions. So it'd be definitely very interesting to be, like a trendsetter in a way, where it would just be really fun to, start something new and start a new way to win. Because, the Lions have been extremely underwhelming for a long time.
And you know why?
So
it's because we're always trying to be followers. We're always trying to copy something else, or like, and again, I like Bob Quinn. I was one of the believers in that position, but we tried to copy the Patriots and follow the Patriot way. And before that, okay, Matt Millen, what was he certainly wasn't a trendsetter unless you want to count taking a million wide receivers who ended up busting trendsetting. He didn't even really have a thing. He never really had okay, this is how we're gonna a vision, an identity. We never really had that identity, right? And this goes back to when we had Barry Sanders, okay, you have to stop Barry Sanders. We're gonna be a team that runs the ball and blah blah blah, and we're gonna beat you by running the ball. But that wasn't really unique to Detroit. A lot of teams back in the '90s had good running backs, specifically Dallas with Emmitt Smith, right? We never really have done something that was trend-setting or forward-thinking or modern or advanced or different.
Right.
And it would be so heartwarming, I guess is a simple, elegant way to put it. To say, wow, we are doing something different. And this is not, I don't like using this term, but this is not same old Lions. If we're going to fail, we're going to fail different. We're going to fail doing something different. And it would really be a fun, exciting way to usher in a new era of being the new Detroit Lions. The different Detroit Lions. The 2021 Detroit Lions. And not just the Lions. As you know from Panthers
we're not
chat.
going to win this. Yeah.
Inside joke.
Hashtag the Lions. We're not going to win a Super Bowl
by doing the same old thing.
By being the Patriots.
Exactly.
We're not going to win a Super Bowl by being one of the 31 other teams in the NFL. We're going to win a Super Bowl by being the Detroit Lions. And that's how it's going to happen, if it's ever going to happen.
Yep.
The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year in 2019-2020. And the way that they did that was extremely revolutionary and extremely different from really anything we've ever seen before. And
it goes before that.
They're
were even more so because they really kind of brought along the RPO offense.
Yep. And really, they're looking to repeat based on their hugely revolutionary team that obviously Andy Reid's one of the best coaches of all time. But when it's all said and done, when he retires, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it, as a head coach. But that's how they won their Super Bowl. They won their Super Bowl building around Patrick Mahomes in a completely revolutionary, aggressive way. And the league is a quote-unquote copycat league. But the best teams are revolutionary.
They're the ones who are not copying anyone else. They're the ones who are being copycatted.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Patriots, for example, as well. Bill Belichick has been doing this for
20 years.
pretty much 30 years, not just with the Patriots. The way that they built it has been crazy, and it's been revolutionary, quite frankly. But then you look at, teams that pick from the Patriots tree and try to go the Patriots way, whether that was the Broncos with Josh McDaniels, whether that was us with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, the Texans, who are now doing it again with Nick Caserio because they don't learn.
Even more so.
Yeah, exactly. I do like Caserio, but it's going to be definitely interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years in Houston.
Josh McCown is
oh dear God. And the Chiefs and other teams with Romeo Crennel.
Eric Mangini of Cleveland, who was along the same lines as Romeo Crennel.
Yeah. There's other names that like
Charlie Weiss with Notre Dame, but that's college.
Really, the only Patriots guy who has seemingly worked has been Mike Vrabel, and he didn't coach with Belichick. He played under him, but he's doing he's doing things differently. He in his own way is taking pieces from Bill Belichick and the Patriots, but he's not a carbon copy like what Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were trying to do, which is why they only won a handful of games.
And there's obviously been a lot of other Bill Belichick executive successes that have come along, who have hired other head coaches. Ozzie Newsome, Jason Licht is another one in Tampa Bay. John Robinson is a Belichick disciple. Thomas Dimitroff is a Belichick partner, disciple, whatever you want to call it. There's been quite a few Belichick success stories from the executive side of things. But, from the coaching side, pretty much Vrabel.
Mm-hmm. And there's a very good reason for that.
Oh, and Flores.
He's not
Flores
trying to be
probably the biggest true Belichick success.
True.
But he doesn't have a Patriots executive. He's been working with Chris Greer.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar where Greer came from before.
Who ironically worked under Jeff Ireland, who's now with Saints.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's definitely interesting, and and basically I listened to your podcast about and read your articles. We're not going to be the Rams with Brad Holmes and coming from that system. We're not going to be the Saints, Dan Campbell. We're going to be our new team. We're picking coaches from successful regimes, but we're not going all the way with the same team. The Rams have been a successful organization recently, especially as of late. They made it to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. The Saints have been successful since I think 2007 or so, when Breeze and Peyton first got there. So it's very interesting, and we're picking from successful regimes, and we're not, just completely stealing one sort of, we're not stealing just the Rams way or the Saints way. We're doing it our own way, and that's what I'm really excited about.
So, do you have any other thoughts on Kyle Pitts or just the tight end position in general? Because the overlapping general theme here is going to be the importance of the tight end position. That's what this podcast is going to be called. So,
Yeah.
just any other thoughts on Pitts or any other draft eligible tight ends that we didn't get the chance to talk about? Or Hockenson?
I haven't watched any of the prospect tight ends, right? I haven't. The main guys have been Brevin Jordan from Miami of Florida and Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. I haven't watched either of those guys. But those are guys that we can. If we don't want to spend first round capital on Pitts, or if he's gone, or we need a quarterback replacement,
or whatever.
Those guys will be. Oh yeah. Those guys will be available in the second round, most likely. It'll be close. It'll be tough. But even if we want another number 2 tight end, we can go into free agency and grab one. It's, but whatever it is, it'll be very interesting to see what we do. I'm a big fan of the tight end position. I've been saying, really, this entire year, that I think TJ Hockenson is the most valuable player on our team, excluding Matthew Stafford. And I got quite a bit of backlash from that. I mean, everybody arguing on behalf of Kenny Golladay, but I've been a constant believer that the tight end position can be the most valuable on your team, excluding quarterback, if you have an elite one. And that's what I've been arguing.
Very nice. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, learned a thing or two along the way. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, whether that be breakdowns or other podcasts, or just our thoughts and rambles, and obviously Lions talk, like this has kind of been today, along with other things that we're doing over the course of the next coming days, weeks, and months. But for now, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and you guys are staying safe and staying healthy out there, and definitely look out for more as we continue to make these for you guys and bring in some different discussion points that maybe we haven't thought about in the past as well. So with that being said, have a nice rest of your day, guys, and peace out.